Welcome back to the Hoop Portal. Can UConn actually run the table in the Big East this year? If we look at the way the Big East is right now, the top five teams currently is obviously UConn, followed by Villanova, St. John's, Creighton, and Seton Hall. Now, of those remaining four teams, UConn still has 7 games left with them, 3 on the road, going to Creighton, going to St. John's, and going to Villanova. If the tournament started today and I had to fill out my bracket, I legitimately would be taking UConn to win the national championship. So let's kind of start with that, and let's compare this team to the back-to-back teams that Hurley just had. The first championship they had, they actually lost 7 games in the Big East. Now, that Big East was clearly a lot better than the current state of what the Big East is right now. And even if we fast forward into the next season, they had 2 losses. One of those losses was the very first game of the conference play against Seton Hall, lost by 15. And then from that point forward, they won 27 of their next 28 games and obviously ended up with back-to-back national championships. And if you look at this year, according to the net, the toughest games that UConn was going to have once conference play started was going to Seton Hall and then going to St. John's. They've already played one of those games and they won. Now, it was a tight contest, but you still got it. Seton Hall ended up being ranked, probably going to drop back out of the rankings now after losing. But all in all, you've already gone to Seton Hall and got that victory. I personally just don't see St. John's being able to truly contend and compete with UConn this year. I think while St. John's might be getting their footing back, I still think it's just a matchup problem across the board when you compare the two. Not saying St. John's can't finish second in the Big East still, but I really like what I've seen out of Villanova. I think their team's still flying really under the radar. And again, I just don't see St. John's contending. Now, it's a one-off game. Maybe they get it. But what this really boils down to is that no team has ever gone undefeated in the Big East since 2000. And again, we say the Big East is very different today than what we saw in the 2000s and 2010s. And in fact, only one team since 2000 has lost only one game in the Big East play, and that was Syracuse in 2012. But I genuinely believe it's a goal and a talking point of this current UConn team and the staff that they want to finish Big East play undefeated. And it would be a massive achievement for this group to be able to say we did something that those past back-to-back championship teams weren't able to do. And some fans might say, nah, we want to lose a game. We want to, a bit of a reality check. Every once in a while, you just need to come back to earth, which I think is a ridiculous take. And in a program like UConn and what Hurley's established, there's no way anybody in that organization is thinking, we need to come off our high horse a little bit. That is the last thing you would see Dan Hurley say. We need to kind of come back to earth. If we're really winning out in the Big East and then win the Big East tournament going into March, it'd be something like 20 plus straight games at that point. That's a lot of pressure. And I couldn't really disagree with that more. People talk about due dates, right? A team's won 10 to 15 games in a row. They're kind of due for an off night, due for a loss. And it goes the other way too, where it's like if a team has lost 10 to 15 games in a row, hey, they're kind of due to at least get one, right? And I think realistically, that's not true. If you've lost 15 games in a row, you're probably not a good basketball team. And if you suck, you suck. And if you're good, you're good. And I think that's the mindset of this UConn program at the moment. And a great coach of mine used to say, I refuse to accept in a win what I would never accept in a loss. And that's been the whole MO of Hurley, whether they're up 20, down 20, whatever the situation is, no matter who they're playing, is an attention to detail constantly. And that extends even beyond Hurley to the rest of the staff. But most importantly, the players, they feel that way too. So I think finishing out the Big East undefeated is absolutely something this UConn team wants to do. The players want to do it. The staff want to do it. And in reality, it's almost a game within the game, right? If you've established yourself as one of the better teams in college basketball, which I believe UConn has up to this point, these are kind of the dog days of the season, late January, early February. You're really just wanting to get to March. You're really just wanting to compete for that national title. How do you keep yourself engaged and motivated through some of these games? Which is why I think the games aren't even necessarily the Villanova, the St. John's games that I would be worried about if I was a UConn fan in that situation. It would be the Xavier on a random night or at Butler on the Wednesday night in February where it's like maybe they're just a little sleepy. But with that staff and more importantly, with that group of players, I think there's a clear achievement. We want to go undefeated in the Big East. We want to win the Big East tournament, and then we want to cap that off with a national championship and only have one loss on our resume this season. And it could even be a loss that you get revenge on against Arizona if you are to see them in the Final Four or even in the national championship and get that win. It would be a massive achievement. It would be 3 national titles in 4 years. UConn has clearly established itself as the true blue blood of college basketball. I know people want to talk about Kentucky, Duke, North Carolina, and I'm a UNC fan in grad, but the truth of the matter is UConn has been the best blue blood post 1999. And it's not even, to me, it's not even really that close. But you guys let me know, get in the comments, can this Big East team really run the table and finish this out soon? How do you think this UConn team compares to those back-to-back national title squads? Also, if you like the hat, check the link in the description. We're partnered with Branded Bills. I really love these hats. They're cool, they're comfortable, they're good for everyday use. They've got a ton of different lineups set up on the website. Just check them out. It'll take you straight to their college gear. Find UConn, find a hat you like, get it ordered. Remember, hit like, share the video, hit subscribe to enter your name in the portal. We'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks.